Hey, She Slayers, and welcome to another episode of She Slays the Day podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Lauryn Brunslick, it's been a week. So we do not record, I don't record these intros ahead of time, which means that I'm currently recording the intro, even though I recorded this podcast a month ago. It is Thursday, May 26th. And so if you're listening around this time, you've been going through a lot of the emotions of shit that's happening in our country, in the U.S. right now. And there's just a lot of sadness. And it's weird. And it's just been a really weird week. So I am with all of you as you're going through a lot of the same emotions that I'm sure I am, especially a lot of parents and things like that. But today we have a very fun conversation. I am speaking to Dr. Rachel Whaley, and she was actually recommended to me after the podcast, the date night podcast that we did with Stu and Hillary Bittman, where we talked about Box on a Wall. And after that, I actually got a couple messages from people saying, hey, you need to reach out to Rachel Whaley. She runs this very successful Box on the Wall style practice. And we're like, okay, sure. And you know what? I'm not going to lie. I'm very hesitant to just reach out to random people to be a guest on the podcast, because girlfriend might be great at her clinic, but not everyone can be as entertaining on a podcast as I can be. Okay, let's just be honest here. There's this fear that I'm going to enter an interview and the person's going to be a dud. And I'm going to be like, oh shit, I guess I better step my game up because I'm bringing the entertainment for this hour. Luckily, Dr. Rachel was awesome. She shares a lot of details that people want to know. I mean, at least I want to know. You know, I'm curious AF when it comes. And this is like something I try and warn my guests of, like, okay, I want to have you on, but like, I'm going to ask questions, and like, I hope you are comfortable spilling the tea. You guys, I said that phrase correctly. Nailed it. Okay. So anyways, yes, we are talking about Box on the Wall. She shared information. It's great. We recorded this about a month ago, and in the month of May, I may or may not have already started like making teeny tiny changes. I didn't put a box on the wall, people. Okay. I didn't, but I did find one at a garage sale that would be my box on the wall I'm kidding. But no, I have had actually a couple conversations with patients this month about like that really value care and want to do weekly, that I sat down and was like, all right, let's talk. What can you afford? And like, well, how can we make this work, type of thing. And in my state, that's legal. I don't know if that's legal in your state. So whatever. Okay. So Rachel, she graduated from Parker in 2009 and is married to her college sweetheart, Aaron. They have 3 kids, Addix, Everly, and Oakley. And she started a Box on the Wall practice right out of school with the goal of serving lots of families and kids to create an atmosphere of community within her practice. She loves working with pregnant mamas and babies, the best, and forming relationships with her clients that last years and years. And I think you will be like I am. You know, I feel bad because so we talk about KPIs on the clinic, I can't get my words right today. And so for those of you who are not sure what I'm talking about, KPI, key performance indicator, it is not a chiropractic term. It is more of a business term. Within chiropractic, we have certain KPIs that people tend to obsess about. You can really make whatever KPIs you want for your clinic. Comes down to money. How much money you're raking in. She shares that. Another one is patient visits. How many visits are you seeing a week? Chiropractors really like to talk about it in weekly. It's funny. I don't know. She shares that. And then OVA, office visit average. What is the average price per adjustment that you're getting? And I asked her and she shares it. I do feel bad though, because one of the things that I didn't ask was PVA, and what a nincompoop kind of host. Like, you do box on the wall. Like, these people have been with her for years and years. And so, I'm sure she has a freaking incredible PVA that blows the national average of 8 to 12 out of the freaking water, because I wouldn't leave. I think we can all agree that, like, if you were getting great care and it was at a price that worked in your budget, you'd stay. So I'm excited for this conversation. We definitely need to pray before we start, though, because like I said, it's a week. So take a breath in, find your breath, relax your jaw. Where's your heart at? Does it feel heavy? Are you carrying negativity? Are you carrying sadness? Are you carrying anxiety? Are you carrying angst? Sometimes there is a time and place to carry those emotions where it's okay. And I am not going to toxic positivity all over you and tell you that good vibes only. Like, it's okay to feel the heaviness and sadness of certain world events, and, certain sad things that happen in your life. It is okay to feel sad sometimes. It is a part of being a human being. I believe that part of the full human experience on this earth is experiencing the wide spectrum of emotions that we have been given. And we have been given joy and happiness, and those are all the things, and fulfillment and purpose. And we just chase only those emotions all the time. And I believe that messes with us. That messes with us to think that those are the only right emotions to feel. And if we're feeling anything less than that, then that is wrong. Because then we start to shame and judge ourselves for not being grateful all the time, and not being joyful and present and happy all the time. And we start going, well, you should be this and you should be that, and you have no reason to feel this. If this didn't happen to you, and we start to really mess with our mental health by shoulding all over ourselves or what we should be feeling, and assuming that sadness and angst and some of these emotions, we label them as bad because they do carry this lower frequency. But I believe that it is okay. It is okay to sit with emotions. It is okay to cry. It is okay to feel feelings, because I believe that spending time in those negative feelings and just really sitting with them can allow for you to truly be grateful for those other spectrum feelings of that happiness and joy and fulfillment. So if you are someone who is having a shit week or a shit day and you just can't get yourself pulled out of the hole that you're in, I love you. And I am giving you a virtual hug, and I would try and cry with you. I'm not very good at crying, but I would pat your back as you cried. And it's okay. And it's okay if you need a few hours, if it's okay if you need a few days. Hell, it's okay if you need a few weeks. Like, make sure you got people, if it's a few weeks, months, like people checking on you. But it's okay if you need a minute, okay? So I love you. I hope that if this is what you needed to hear, I hope tomorrow the sun shines on you and you just feel God's love and your friends and family love all around you, and the support and blessings that I know you have. In your name we pray. Amen. Okay, here is my talk with Dr. Rachel Whaley. I hope all of you people who are in practice are about ready to change everything you do. Just kidding. Or maybe not. Who knows? Let me know if you do. All right, enjoy.
I saw something.
Yeah, it's just I started recording.
I think it was you that said something one time about business classes in school, and the one that we get the last year of school, and it's all about insurance and doesn't pertain to any cash-based practice, especially box on the wall. And so basically I was just winging it from the get-go.
Well, it's funny because my goal is to not get in trouble ever, right? Like we used to be a network, and our number one reason that we got out of network with insurance was because I didn't want to accidentally do something wrong and one day get in trouble for it. And so it's funny because on the podcast, so I assume we're not doing anything illegal, but there's always that question of like, am I gonna say something and somebody's just gonna write me a little message? And I picture them being really nice about it, but hey, I also work in Wisconsin and you're not allowed to do that. And you just told 2,000 people you do that. And I'm like, oh, cool. So I caveat every single episode with, I'm not an expert. These are just
ask for forgiveness later.
Right? These are just my opinions. So don't worry, Rachel. There is always the caveat of consult your lawyer, consult your state laws, and don't come at me if you're mad or offended. That's basically, there we go. We've covered it. So, okay, I would love to know, it's so cliche, but I don't know who you are. So background for listeners is on the date night episode with Stu and Hillary Bittman, they started talking about Box on the Wall a little bit. And Kirby, who's not a chiropractor, was in there for date night. And I am familiar with Box on the Wall only from a single Reggie Gold talk that I heard in chiropractic school. Northwestern was really, the time while I was at Northwestern, they were very strict about letting these super philosophical speakers on. So I remember Reggie Gold came, but I had never heard his name. I didn't know he was a big deal. And I happened to kind of just wander in. And it wasn't until 5 minutes into sitting in that room, and I was like, who is this man? He is incredible. And so that's my only, and he just mentioned Box on the Wall. And then I remember being like, wait, what is he talking about? And somebody said, and I'm like, that's crazy talk. That is crazy. And so then Stu and Hillary Bittman brought up that they ran their practice this way. Kirby wasn't really familiar with it because I never he's my business partner, and I never suggested that we run our practice this way. And after words, I had two people both reach out and say, you need to talk to Rachel. She's running a very successful Box on the Wall practice. And do you have a coffee shop in your?
So yeah, I have a slight addiction. And so I was spending, this Yeti cup is about what I get every day. And I had a coffee shop on the way to work, and I would stop and just have them fill up my Yeti every day. And it was costing me about $12 every day. I'm like, I'm friends with the owner of the coffee shop. Might as well just see if he could put one in my new office I'm building. That way I'm supplied on the regular all day long rather than just the morning time. So
it's going to be hard for you to come up with something I like better about you than that one thing by the end of this episode. I think there we go. The most important thing I've gotten, we'll get that's incredible. That's so smart. Oh my God.
Well, and it's interesting because my practice is called the Chiropractic Wellness Cafe. And so for years in my old office, which was this small 900 square foot space, people were always like, where's the cafe come from? Do you have coffee here? And I'm like, no, it's a play on words. We're serving life. Because part of our mentor in chiropractic school, actually, Denise Weber and Andrea Lang, who you've also had on, we were all in the same tri together, and we all had the same mentor. And so Arno Bernier and Autumn again, Autumn Hicks, yeah. And so we used to have philosophy nights there, and Arno had a Cafe of Life website. And so I wanted to be on that Cafe of Life website. And so I tried to have cafe somewhere in my name. And for years, it just threw people off because they just didn't get it. Well, now they assume that it's because I have coffee in the office. So I have to correct still years later.
Right. You're like, okay. So is Parker down in Texas, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you graduate from Parker.
Yes, ma'am.
What did you do right away after school?
So I am I think this also might play into something later on, but I'm a 2 wing 3, but a very strong
I love
3 tendencies.
I love it so much.
Like almost even on my 2-3. So I've always been one of those like challenger achiever, like I know what I want and I'm going to go get what I want. And if you tell me I can't do it, I'm going to prove you wrong.
Right.
And so I knew I didn't really want to work for anyone because
can I just
interrupt
for a second?
Of course,
that is also your 8. So like 2s go to 8. So like the whole like I'm going to show you more of an 8 thing than a 3. But yeah, keep going.
Well, I had a mindset of how I wanted my practice to go, and back then we just had like the housing crash and market was awful. And my husband and I got married 2 weeks after I graduated from chiropractic school. So we just had bought a house and I had all this massive debt against me. And so I wanted to start my own practice, but the location that I wanted to start in, the rent was just unreal. And then you also had to deal with build out and it just didn't seem feasible. Well, my dad was the fire chief in the city I currently work in for 20 years and had recently taken over as city manager. And he saw an office building on the way to work every day that had been unattended for like 2 or 3 years. It was attached to a dentist office. And so he's like, you should reach out to them. It looks like it would be a good space for you. So I did. And the dentist who owned it was originally going to start a satellite clinic out of the office, but it didn't end up working out with everything. And I got super lucky. He hadn't had anybody in there and hadn't had any requests to be in there for so long that he offered to pay for my build out. And so he paid the $30,000 for build out because I could not get a loan straight out of school with all the debt against me. And so we drew up a 5-year contract and he paid for the build that. I got to choose how I wanted the layout. I got to choose everything in it, from paint color to bathroom fixtures. And it was serendipitous. It was awesome because I had saved some of my money from school from student loans. I had about $13,000 that I saved up through the 9 tries. And that's what I started my practice with. I got 2 Thule tables, office furniture, a little bit of decor from Michael's or Home Goods or something, and just opened my doors. And with my dad being the city manager, I had a little bit of an in with some of the people in town, like the fire department, with them being they knew me since I was a baby. So I would do lunch and learns at the fire department and the police station and local places around town, the Chamber of Commerce, whatnot. But I really wanted to work with babies and pregnant mommies because that's where my heart was. So also around that time, we had a local area of midwives and doulas and birth-related people wanting to get together for some monthly birth meetings. So we started Tarrant County birth network meetings. And my husband works at Texas Wesleyan. And so I had an in there to be able to get a room for all of us to meet for these Tarrant County birth network meetings. And so that's how I really got in the door of working with a lot of pregnant women and getting families in my office, was reaching out to all the local midwives and the doulas and creating relationships with them. So it was slow going that first year, growing the practice. But after the first year, it really kind of took off.
So where was is this the 900 square foot practice you referenced?
Yes, I was in the 900 square foot practice.
I was in so I graduated 2010. It's 2022. I was probably in a 800 to 900 square foot location for a solid 6 years. Like we were seeing 300 plus in this little guy, just me. And so, yeah. So what does your husband do? He's obviously not a chiropractor. You said he works at.
He is not. We met at Texas Wesleyan. I played volleyball there. He played basketball, and he's Air Force baby. So he traveled around everywhere. And after he graduated university, they offered to keep him on as the assistant dean of students. So that was what he started at. But then about 2 or 3 years of that, they wanted to build a fitness center on campus. And he's very much into the fitness realm. And so they asked him to be the director of the fitness center. So he runs the fitness center and the student workers and yoga classes, things like that up there.
Okay. So what town is your practice in?
My practice is in a small town called Crowley. It's about 20 minutes south of downtown Fort Worth.
Okay. So when you say small town, what do you mean?
Not as small as probably what you.
How small are we talking? Measly million?
Census lately, I would guess somewhere between 30 and 50,000.
Okay. Yes, I am not going to argue that that's a small town. Yeah, I just didn't know it could get that small. You said you're 20 minutes from downtown Fort Worth. Like that gets desolate, or that gets like really narrowed out quickly.
Yeah. So I have a ton of people come from Fort Worth, and then Arlington is another larger city. Mansfield is a little bit south of Arlington, and those are all larger cities, 100,000, 200,000 plus. And so with all these places only being like a 15 to 20 minute drive, I have a lot of people from the Metroplex traveling in. My longest commuters actually are coming from Arkansas now.
Oh my God.
They recently moved to Hot Springs, and they still come once every 2 weeks to see me from Hot Springs.
So did you start right away box on the wall?
I did. Yes.
You did?
I did. Yeah. My mom, I think I gave her ulcers. My dad just thought I was crazy naive, and he knew we're both Aries and stubborn to a fault. And so he knew he couldn't talk me out of it, but they prayed for me on the daily because they didn't see how it could work. Stigafus, I believe it was tried 2 in Parker seminars that I heard him, and that's where I heard about the box the first time. And he referenced Reggie in that seminar. And so I went to a Sherman seminar where Reggie was, just so I could hear Reggie talk, because he hadn't been to Parker seminars yet. And so the idea of the box resonated with me at first, right when I heard it in try 2. But as you know, you're inundated with tests and quizzes and all this busy life stuff. So for the next 2 years, we were just doing school and jump into the hoops. And when it came time to graduate, I was kind of debating how I wanted to run my office and the ins and outs of fees and whether I was going to adopt something like Autumn or something similar. And the
Autumn box on the wall?
No, okay. She wasn't. But like I said, we had been doing philosophy nights there. And so a lot of us really loved how she ran her practice. And so around that time, the Chiropractic Revealed book came out that had interviewed like 25, 30 of the great chiropractors. Reggie Gold was in there, Claudia Onrig, and I had got that and was reading through it. And the section on Reggie came up, and he mentioned the box on the wall again. And I'm like, oh yeah, I remember. I really, really love that concept. And so I was thinking about that and how that could work. And around that time as well, my mom had filed for bankruptcy. And obviously she didn't have to worry about care with me being her daughter, but she also suffered from really debilitating migraines. And I was thinking of people in her situation and how a lot of people could find themselves having issues with money, budget, but still having a great, great need for chiropractic and what we could offer them. Mm-hmm. And my heart kind of went out for people like that. And I knew that I could have a big impact and could drastically help improve quality of life to hopefully help in all avenues. But those two things happening side by side, me having the refresher on the Reggie Gold box on the wall, and then my mom going through that, I'm like, I really feel led to go this route. And so I had to start doing some more research on what that would look like.
Right.
So I had also read all the Blue Books by Dr. Joseph Strauss. And at that point in time, he was still in practice. And so I reached out to him and kind of just, how do you do it, dude? Like, what do I do? Like, I know nothing about anything business related, but I have a heart to serve. And this is how I want to do it. And so he gave me a lot of his paperwork to use, and I could kind of fine tune it and finagle it to a little bit more my personality, and got a DBA and opened my doors and
So
went around town.
Are you an LLC? You're not a nonprofit.
I'm not a nonprofit. I am an LLC, and started as an LLC straight from the get-go. Just with a lot of faith.
Yeah.
A lot of faith.
How was your, like, so you said your parents were like losing their shit. How did your husband feel about this?
My husband has always been like one of those amazing men who sees my vision and knows my personality and knows I will do everything to make something succeed. And he's always just been in my corner. Like he's like, this sounds crazy to me, but I trust you, and let's see. If it doesn't work out, we can always try something else.
Oh, is so he an Enneagram 9?
He's actually, we are double opposites. He's a 5, a hardcore 5.
So I was convinced my husband was a 5 for the longest time, but okay. But
yeah. He's extreme introvert. I'm extreme extrovert. And
wow. But like,
I don't know.
5s need data.
Yeah. So he's like the list taker, and I don't ever do lists. And so it was a lot of faith on his part, on just trusting that I knew kind of what I was doing. And I think I faked it to him a little bit more, like, oh yeah, this is totally going to work. Like, don't worry about this at all.
Had you gone and seen any other clinics that are like, okay, you're doing this, I want to see this? And like, did you ask them like, so like how, because, okay, we're going to talk money for a second here. Like, there's a difference between like, yeah, I pay my bills, and like, oh yeah, I pay my bills and go on vacation and take my, like, did you ask as a student, like, so like, how okay is this? Because box on the wall docs love to be like, and it's all provided for. And I'm like, well, like, what's provided for? Like
this might like flip you on the other. I didn't talk to anybody about money. Box on the wall. I didn't shadow any box on the wall practices. I actually did the opposite. I shadowed a lot of other type of practices to make sure that that's what I didn't want. Mm-hmm. And that way my certainty and my belief was just like built up about the box. And so I really had no expectations going into it from the money standpoint.
Because you really can't go back. Like, I mean, you can, but it's basically like,
it's a lot. It would be a lot harder to be like,
so actually, I'm going to start charging now.
This didn't work out. But I always had goals that like I wanted to meet, but my goals were never monetary goals. They were people goals, as far as like how many people I'm serving a week. So the first year, it was real slow going. So I think by the end of the first year, I was seeing about 75 to 80 people a week. And I mean, that was keeping my husband and I, like, we were covering all of our bills. And thankfully he did have a salaried job. So the way my husband and I kind of did things is divide and conquer. He took care of all of our house and bills and groceries. And all I had to do was take care of my office. And my overhead was pretty low. I worked for myself. I didn't have any help. I was a one-woman show for the first 4 years. I did everything. I did all the, like, I didn't have appointments in the beginning. People could just walk in and be seen right then, day one. Because I had a box, I didn't have to worry about billing. I didn't have to worry about anything else. I legit just had a box on the wall. I had a credit card machine set up in my office. this might
What
trip you
was the
out. I
credit card machine?
didn't even run the credit card machine.
I was going to say,
I
why
would
do you have a
show
credit card
them
machine?
so people could pay by
Oh, duh.
credit card.
Okay. Oh my God. Okay. So
They would
this makes
either
sense.
cash or check in the box, or they would run into my office, type in what they wanted to pay on the credit card machine, swipe their card, take the receipt, put the receipt in the box.
'Cause who has
So
cash
that
in
way
the-
they could be paying out while I was still adjusting the next person. So it didn't slow me down at
and
all.
you didn't go into there, so there wasn't that like
No,
awkward.
there wasn't that awkward like discomfort.
This was very
at all.
smart of you, because if the amount of money the baristas at my local coffee shop should have gotten from me over the last year, but when I never have cash, and they don't give me a thing with my credit card to put the tip, and so like I'm just not tipping them, and I'm like, I don't have cash. So like if I was your patient, you would have never gotten money from me if you didn't have credit card, because I'd be like, I'm sorry, I a lot of money now. Okay, so credit card machine.
So it just worked out really well that way. And lost my train of thought. What were you talking about?
Well, you didn't have staff for 4 years.
Oh yeah, staff. Okay, so I was doing it all. I didn't even have, at that point in time, I didn't even have a software system. So I had a piece of paper that people would sign in on, and I had their paperwork, like hard copy paperwork that I ended up having to keep for 7 years. But I just learned everybody's name and who they were by connections. And I like the people to feel like they're known, they're seen. And so they would come in, and I would have a little baseball clicker that kept track of how many people I would see. And so the first year, I think I finished around 75, 80. And I had a goal to see 300 by year 3.
Okay.
And then I had a goal to see 500 by year 5, and a goal to see 1,000 by year 10. And so the birth network meetings really, really helped with growing the pediatric pregnancy part of my practice. And I would go to those every single month and network, and really just create lots of lifelong friendships, because I'm still really close with a lot of those people. But by year 3, I had hit the 300 a week, still rocking it by myself. I ended up getting pregnant 2 months after I started my practice. I started my practice in March of 2010. April, May, June, 3 months after so June, I got pregnant with my son, and had him about a week after I started my practice, about a year in.
Okay.
So as a single, like one woman show who needs to go on maternity leave for a bit, that, kind of was trying. And so thankfully, because of this birth network, I did have a lot of awesome, like-minded chiropractor friends. And I was able to get one of them to fill in my office 3 days a week while I was on maternity leave. Now, I only took 6 weeks with my son, which sucked.
Yeah.
But it is what it is at that point in time.
It's real.
And
I tell people, like, one of the most motivating things to come back is when you see your first baby, your clinic, slowly wasting away. And you're like, oh shit, I haven't seen less than that number of people since my first 6 months of practice. Mama got to get back in there.
And so thankfully, she was very similar in style to me. And so it allowed the practice to maintain. I didn't really lose many at that point in time. But by year 3, when I was seeing 300, I started thinking, okay, I might need some help soon. Mm-hmm. And so the birth network, I'm telling you, this really was a godsend, because that's how I found my first associate. My first baby, I had a local midwife, Donalyn Dominguez, and her assistant, Sue Salstrand, who was wonderful, had a daughter who was in chiropractic school at that time. And I met her at a seminar and just fell in love with her. I was like, I want you. She was in Tri-5 at that time. I was like, don't look for a job. I want you in my office. And so I already had kind of that in the plans for when she graduated. And it was seamless. She graduated, she got everything done that she needed to get done. She started with me in 2014, and we were rocking and rolling. At that point in time, I had cut my hours down because I had a baby.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't working the 36 hours a week. I was working about half that. And so what we did was the shifts that I had shut down that I wasn't working anymore, she just took over. So it was like she kind of was running her own practice on just the opposite hours of me. And I gave her a percentage of the box. So she made half of her box. That's kind of how her.
So like at the end of your shift, empty your box. And then.
Yep. And so she would get half of the shifts that she worked. And so that's kind of how I did the whole payment thing. And at that point in time, I would have QuickBooks, and every day I would put in like what my totals were. And I don't even remember back in the early days. The earliest I can remember is having days where I would make like $470 and $560 and it was kind of consistent there. And, at that point in time, I was like, hey, this is awesome. I'm actually making money. And then things started growing and those numbers started going up. And my first associate, I really didn't know how to pay her with the box premise.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know if I could do a salary because at that point in time, with a box, you end up getting pretty consistent numbers that you can kind of gauge what your month is going to be. So it's not as
has there been like
willy-nilly.
A general OVA for you over the years?
I would say yes, but that's a very hard stat for a box.
Yeah.
Because when you are seeing lots of families, especially in this model, families who wouldn't otherwise be able to have care in other offices because of their fee systems. Like I have a lot of families that have 6, 7, 9 kids. I have one mom who has 15 kids.
Yeah.
And
holy
it's
shit.
those type of those type of families that like I feel like skew those results because you have one family of 11 people and they're paying one amount. And so I feel like it's generally around $20, I guess, which is,
you're talking to the right person here. Where you do not need to defend yourself. Fees are not something that I actually just had somebody send me a question saying like, hey, have you done an episode on fees? And I'm like, no, I have not, because there's some very strong opinions out there and some strong words that get thrown out there about like you're devaluing what you're doing. I'm not going to go there. I'm going to say that I had a conversation with Tony Ebel once because he has been like air quotes attacked about like, you're not charging enough, blah, blah, blah. And like, it's just like, it's kind of what you're saying of like, listen, I looked at, and this is what our clinic had to do. We actually just lowered our fees this year. So inflation went up and we lowered our fees where some adjustments, I'm going to go ahead and say it since you were so kind to share, like some adjustments might be getting like $14, depending on the size of the family and how frequently they're coming, because we had to look at our wellness plans and go, okay, we have a lot of people who are on weekly wellness, individuals, and we have a lot of people who are 2 people on weekly wellness. And then when you start looking at like, well, we don't really have that many families of 3 on weekly wellness, even though, it's affordable, air quotes. And then we don't really have any families of 4, and we really don't have. And so we started to go like, listen, if philosophically we believe that everybody should be checked, every family should be under weekly, we have to look at what's a reasonable amount that they would pay in a month. And we had to go like, okay, so I love chiropractic. Like I am a chiropractor, but let's say I had all of the passion and knowledge for chiropractic, but none of the ability to actually do chiropractic. Okay. What would our family pay on a monthly basis to go get adjusted every week? And at what point would I start going like, the kids could go every other to save $50, you know? And so that's a long way of me saying.
And that's the biggest thing. I didn't want anybody to have to pick and choose which family members
and
receive
that's
care.
what they start doing.
Like that. Yeah. And it is the truth of the matter. And so I've never been attached to those type of stats because I feel like they don't really bear much weight in my type of practice. Yeah. And I feel like anybody who feels called to have a box, those are not really numbers that resonate, or at least I don't think that you could look those, because otherwise you will get into the whole, they don't value me. Like they don't care about what I'm doing.
Here's the maybe wing too also is so let's say that you know, if you're a chiropractor and you have a mom who's like, okay, I can afford $40 every week. And you're like, okay, I will see. And she's like, you know, so, and I go like, yep, that's perfect. That's exactly what I charge. And they've got a kid and you're like, oh, okay. But I wouldn't see both of you for 40. Right. And so that's where my head just started going like, dude, whatever. I'll see $40 sounds good to me. Just bring the whole family in, whatever. I'll take $40. That sounds great. For 2 of you, 3, 4, 5, whatever. Like whatever. Just thank you for your $40. I appreciate it. So yeah. So
yeah.
I do railed you.
Well, and in those type of circumstances, you have to think in traditional practices that focus more on symptomatology versus vitalism and preventative care. You might be getting that amount, whatever you choose to charge them, for a short duration, but are you seeing them for years on end?
Right.
Because most of my practice members have been with me for at least 5 years plus. I mean, I have some that date back to the very beginning. It's a family in our office. Like people always mention coming in and the vibe they get and the energy is just, it's so welcoming and it feels like home. And that's kind of what I wanted to create and what it makes me so excited about this type of office mindset. Because I mean, we're seeing, like, obviously I talked in the beginning about growth, but we see about 1,300 plus a week now. So I have—
How many associates do you have?
I have 3 associates. I might be looking for a 4th associate in 6 months or so. So if anybody wants to work in an office like this, but it's a very high volume practice with a box on the wall. I feel like if your premise and your goal is to serve, and if you want a successful box on the wall practice, you have to have a high volume. Mm-hmm. And so if you don't want to see but 25 people a day, then this is definitely not the model for you. And, you know, like through the years, I've changed things. Like I said, no business experience. So you make mistakes and you grow from them. So in the beginning, I had no stipulations with my box. People could just come in and pay whatever, whenever. I since learned that was not necessarily the brightest of decisions to have no guidelines whatsoever. Because what would happen is I would have people come for a while and educate them about the lifestyle and wellness. And there would be some that just, you know, they didn't want the lifestyle. They wanted a quick fix. They wanted to feel better. And so I would not see them for a few months and they would come back and they'd still be able to set their own fee. And that didn't resonate with me. I wanted people to have the privilege of setting their own fee as long as they were coming on a regular basis. Oh. So I have stipulations. So after, I think I adopted this year 2 or year 3. And back then, the fees are different than what they are now. Back then it was, as long as you're coming at least once every 2 weeks, you had the privilege of setting your own fee. We recommended weekly care once they got past more preventative stage maintenance. But if it was an individual, they would reset. If they were outside that 2-week window, they would have a reset fee of $40 for one person, $60 for 2 people, $80 for a family of 3 or more. Once I moved into my new office, I hired my mom as my office manager. And I no longer have a physical box on the wall. We have a front desk and people will go up to her and make their payment. So they will tell her how much they want to run the credit card for. They will hand her the cash or check or pay.
Is that payment attached to a name in QuickBooks?
So I don't use QuickBooks for that. I use Pure Chiro Notes.
Okay.
And it's just a very simplistic software model that allows us to swipe, but we adjust each visit, and it's attached to their name in the system. And so she will attach it to their name so we can kind of track what they do on a regular basis, or what the office does. And she also has an Excel spreadsheet set up to kind of double check things. And we do enter it into an Excel spreadsheet still every night, so we can see our daily totals and track numbers that way. So my mom is an Excel wizard. She was one of the best things I could ever do for my office. I brought her on in 2019, so 9 years into practice. And the main reason for bringing her on and switching from a physical box on the wall is, at that point in time, year 9, we were seeing anywhere between 750 and 900 people a week in that 900 square foot office. And it was blowing, like it. I knew I needed to build sometime soon. I bought my land in 2014 because I knew I would eventually have to expand, and it was two spaces down from my current office, so we weren't moving far. But at that point in time, it didn't feel ready to move over there, and so I knew I wanted to expand, and I knew I would have to change the way I pay my associates, because at that point in time, it was just me and one other doc in the old office. I brought on a third doc to kind of see how it would go, where we could have 2 people working per shift. And I really loved it. It really helped with the wait times, because my office is also a little bit different. The first appointment is the only one you ever have to have. After that, it's walk-ins.
Okay.
In the old office, it was just walk-ins. I do. I changed things a little in the new office. So in the old office, it was just walk-ins only. So we had office hours from 7:30 to 1 on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and 3 to 6:30. And then Tuesday, Thursday was 10 to 1 and 3 to 6:30. Saturday hours were 9 to 1. And people could just walk in.
Holy shit, you were awesome.
Well, I was, like I said, I was only working half of those. And so the other associate was working half. And so I think I work anywhere between, now I work about 29 hours a week. Back then it was like 24. So from then moving to the new office, we raised our fees because it had been 10 years since I raised my fees. So now the first visit is $75 for an individual, $105 for a couple, $145 for a family. And then if they fall outside of their 2-week window, the reset fees are $50 for an individual.
Cheap. That's cheap.
Yeah, it's still really, really affordable.
You don't even have that barrier. How do you keep your ideal patients coming? Like, I just picture, because do you do marketing?
No, I've never marketed ever.
Yeah. So, you don't do any marketing. So how do you keep the philosophy of this is what we're creating here. Mm-hmm. How do you create that without I don't know, poor Joe Blow always gets such a bad rap, but him coming and just being just crack my back and I'll see you next week. How do you keep the people you do not want bringing down your vibe coming into your clinic because they're there because they're yeah, I can pay $5 a week if I want to.
Yeah. And sometimes that happens, but I feel like having a person there that they're telling what they want to pay does help offset that a little bit. And we do say in our orientation, we're we're not a venti latte. If you're spending more on your coffee habit than you are your adjustments, then you're taking advantage of how this box and this model is supposed to be working. We're trying to offer you a service at an affordable rate. Nobody wants to feel taken advantage of. And so we will tell people, we want you to do the best you can. And whatever that is, we'll honor that as long as you're coming at least once every 2 weeks. And if you fall outside of that window, then you will pay a reset. So for those people who do only want to use it symptomatically, they're paying $50 every single time they come, which is kind of what the going rate is in the area. And then the couple fee is $80 and the family reset fee is $120. We also offer monthly options for people. So I have some families that just don't want to have to worry about paying every single visit. So they might just pay the $300 for the month or whatever. people, they set their own monthly fee as well. And so it really comes down to, I feel like people see the passion that we have for chiropractic, and we try to really educate people about how the benefit of long-standing regular chiropractic care can not only influence their daily stress, but in their kids' lives and the impact it can have on them. And that's one of the really cool things. I feel like having a practice like this, I had a lot of teenagers that I was taking care of about 10 years ago. And now they have since gotten married and had babies and are bringing their babies in. So we're getting like second generation. And I feel like having this type of model and seeing the type of people that we see, like refers like. So a lot of pregnant moms and families want access to what we have, but they haven't been able to get it for their whole family anywhere else. And so the referrals, I've never had to market because it refers itself. People see where we're coming from. And I feel like a lot of it is personality. I have an amazing team of doctors. My associates are powerhouse. Like they all extremely strong Christians and have a heart to serve. And I feel like the dynamic and the way we all offer something a little bit different, we all work really well together, and we can offer something different for the families that are coming in case they have a certain style or technique that they just resonate with. We have differences between the four of us. And I feel like the biggest issue is our heart. People see that. When they see that we're not just out to get in their pocketbooks, they have a tendency to refer more. And I've never really dealt with the people who only want us for symptom stuff bringing us down, because I have so many of the other people who do get what we're doing that are coming back week in, week out, that it offsets those random strays who only want a quick fix.
Yep. Okay. I have two questions. I'm going to say it out loud so we don't forget. One is about the orientation that you mentioned, like how you like introduce this concept to people. And then two is like how the four of you doctors, like how notes work type of thing of like, are you charging $0? And how, if like, because we have a similar system where we've got 4 docs, and when you come in, you could see any of us docs. So is it like how that high volume, but 4 docs communication works? So let's start with the orientation.
I'm going to pause real quick and answer a question that I forgot about that I didn't come back to. You asked about in the new office if we still do the walk-in, because this will play a role in the question you just answered. Yes, we still have open walk-in hours, but we also added in appointments as well for the people who needed to get in and get out and didn't have to worry about a wait time, because sometimes the office gets busy. Sometimes you get to walk in and be seen within like 5 or 10 minutes. Sometimes it's like a 30-minute wait. And so people who had a really busy schedule and maybe have a lot of kids for practices, we wanted to give them options to be able to get in and get out. So we have 5-minute appointments for individuals, 10-minute appointments for couples, and 15-minute appointments for families of 3 or more. So they have the option of doing either. That being said, when people are booking their first visit, there are different times during the week that each of us doctors will do new client orientation. And so they can book who they want for that first visit. When we go through the orientation, we do, and I know that everybody's office models are different. I know like Tony, I think you do a 2-day as well. We adjust the same day. We have 30-minute appointment blocks. And I do have somebody who I'm hiring to do scans full-time on people, so we can scan them before they're coming to us already? First. So I bought the Insight back in 2020.
Oh boy.
And, they do a really awesome job of like showing you how to work the machines and do the scans. But I felt like I needed to go to a seminar to learn the intricacies of like pattern and symmetry and all of that good stuff, to see kind of just patterns across the board. And the world shut down. And so I'm like, awesome. Well, I can try to wing this. And I had a front desk person who was doing them for me for a time, and I had to let her go. And after I did, I didn't have anyone to take over doing the scans. And so now I am looking for somebody to do scans full time again. And so we could do it broad across the board. So we do have that as a tool, and I'm hoping to be able to use it more in the next 5 to 6 months. I am going to Tony's seminar September this year, just to try to see how they incorporate that and how I can do it with my type of practice model, since it's so different. So yes, we have that. And sometimes I will use that for a lot of cases, like if I have a special needs, or if I have a case that I really like, I need to see what's going on, then I'll take them back and scan them before anything else. But so we have that. And then the orientation is kind of just looking over we use the well-aligned paperwork. So we get a lot of the information that we need based off of that. And most of the first visit is just listening to what they are presenting with, and then what their goals are. And we try to focus on getting them to their goals and what that would look like in order to get them to reach their goals.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about the box on the wall, it's more of how that can help them with those goals versus just the symptoms. We really don't like to focus on symptoms in our office. And so we give them the option of bringing in their family within the first 2 weeks to just pay the difference of the family fee. So if they've paid the initial $50, then if their husband comes in the next 2 weeks, they just have to pay the $30 difference. If husband and kids come in, they would pay the $70 difference. Then whatever they can afford covers the whole family, as long as they're all coming at least once every 2 weeks. If mom and kids are coming once every 2 weeks, but dad isn't, he would pay the $50 reset if he falls outside of that window.
Right. Yep.
So
do you, the doctor, talk to them? So they come in,
yes,
talk, you like give the big idea. Do you make like a recommendation of like, you should come X number of visits?
We do. A lot of that.
And then the adjustment, or do you go like, let's get adjusted and then we'll lay out these?
No, we talk about money. We talk about money before we take them back to get adjusted.
Okay.
So we talk about how all of that works. And while I'm talking about the money portion, I will make mention of how initially they might need to be seen more frequently to try to help unwind their system and the forward momentum getting more towards health versus where they currently are in that symptomatic state where there's just all this disconnect in their system. And so initially I want them to get more in tune with their body. So I tell them, after this first adjustment, I really want you to pay attention to how you sleep tonight. What type of differences you might see. Do you have more clarity of thought? Do you have more range of motion? Do you feel any changes with where the tension in your nervous system is? Does it feel like it unwinds or lifts or is lighter? Pay attention to that. And I want you to notice when that might fade, or when you start to feel things ramp up and your nervous system get more jittery. Mm-hmm. And so when that happens, that would be the ideal time that you come back to see us. Now, most people, when they've never been adjusted, or if it's been a while, might notice that happens fairly quickly within the first day, maybe 2 days. So ideally, the majority of people would be coming every other day, or in some situations daily, for the first few weeks, until you start to see that pattern change to where your nervous system can tolerate more, is able to adapt better. And I usually give them guidelines, like if you're noticing that it's holding or lasting where you feel ease in your system for about 3 to 4 days, then usually that's the time that we would start seeing you twice a week. Our goal is to where that's lasting 5, 6 days or longer, to where once a week is sufficient. Now, I have no idea how long it's going to take for you to get to that point, because everybody's nervous system is stressed in different ways. And that's where we talk about the thoughts, traumas, toxins, and how that, impacts people on a daily. And so I'll give them kind of recommendations based off of that. And initially people will come more frequently. And so I tell them, that's the beauty.
Out, or they're walking in. They're like, all right, you told me to come back. I might come back tomorrow. I might come back in 2 days.
We don't have them schedule out. I don't have my mom go ahead and book them for 45 days. I will say, ideally I would like to see you on this day. Would you like to go ahead and book that, or would you like to walk in? And so I give them kind of when they should come back, and then I let them choose what they would like to do. And most of the time, people will kind of stick to that schedule until we tell them, or until like the feedback that we get from them asking questions, we're both kind of on the same page of like, yeah, I think it's time that we can cut that visit and we can go down to twice a week, or we can go down to once a week, so on and so forth. I do have some people who, just the way their brain space works, they like to book out. And so our software can book out up to 45 days in advance. And so in some situations, they'll book out at least 2 or 3 weeks. But most people, I feel like, who are starting care, they just kind of play it by ear, because a lot of them don't know what to expect. They don't know when they will have those, like when things will fade to where they will need to come back in. So I kind of have an idea set up in place for what they should expect. And then with the fee system, I'm like, obviously, if you're coming 3 times a week or more, we recognize that you might not be able to pay as much per visit. So we take that into consideration, and we want you to do the best you can. But hindsight, like once you're able to drop one of those visits or 2 of those visits and you're only coming once a week, we would expect you to change your fee according to the less frequent care, still what you can afford kind of for the monthly basis. Mm-hmm. That way they're not just getting in that routine of paying a certain amount just because they always have.
Right. That makes sense. Oh, I want to change everything I'm doing.
It really is so freeing. I love that there's nothing, I don't know what the majority of people pay. My mom does, but I don't know what the majority of people pay, because I don't want there to be any type of negative feeling associated mm-hmm. with, well, they can only do this or whatever. I want to be able to serve from a place of love every single time somebody's at my table. And I don't want any of those type of distractions to get in the way of that. Mm-hmm. And so I love that aspect, that no matter who I'm seeing, we're able to bless regardless of what they're able to pay us. I will say that starting my practice 13 years ago, I never foresaw that it would get to where I am now. I'm extremely, I'm in awe of how well this practice model has worked. I haven't gotten my taxes back this year, but I want to say brought in like 1.2 last year. To answer your questions about the money, I don't usually get into that because it's one of those things I don't like to focus on, because I don't think it's about that.
But it's the number one objective people likely have. It really, really is am I going to be able, like, and it's hard because, you mentioned you have very strong faith, and that was the number one thing that led you to this model. And so, like, telling the person, like, okay, well, we collected 1.2 last year. Like, it's like, well, then you don't have the faith. Like, like to the person, like, it's okay, but they're like, can you just assure me? Can you just assure me? I'm like, well, I can't assure you of shit, but I can tell you. Okay. Final question is about how you 4 doctors, like, how do you do? So is everybody's note going in at $0?
So that aspect, the docs don't even really pay attention to. The note aspect, we all see the notes the same way. So we all have like our own login, but it pulls up the notes the same way. And so when we have somebody come in, we always tell them, you're going to have the option of who you want to see, no matter what. I recommend you try all 4 docs to see if there's a certain style or technique that you like. But if you find one that resonates with you, you can always request that specific doctor. So they can always just book with them through the existing client portal. Or if they walk in, we usually go up front and ask if they have a preference. And if so, we call them back. There's an alert, like a client alert kind of thing up at the top of the note, where if there's anything of note that is important, like past surgeries or anything that we found that is really working for that person, or adjustment style that really works for them, we'll make notes there. So most of the doctors can kind of look to that to see what is going on with that person. And in most cases, we all kind of share clients. Mm-hmm. We do have some that, like I have some that have been with me from the get-go. So their preference is me.
Yeah.
But if the wait time is high, then they might go see somebody else. But the financial side of that, my associates don't really see or look at any of that. They only see kind of the note and then swipe what they adjust that day. And there's extra notes on the side for objective, subjective, in case they need to add in anything of note, like kid fell out of a tree or mom just delivered twins, one was breached, so on and so forth. But yeah, did that answer the question, or were you looking for something else?
No, you answered it.
Okay. The software is very, very simplistic, and I called Tony's office last week to see what they use, because whenever I hire the lady who's going to be doing the scans, I'd love to be able to have a software that will alert me when the 12th visit is there. And his office manager said that the software they use is not one they would just necessarily recommend for my office, just because of the uniqueness. And that's one of the things that's really been hard for my practice, is a lot of the software systems, they don't have a self-check-in option, or if they do, you still have to have like a 5-minute appointment, and you can't book a family appointment in one spot. And with us seeing such high volume and doing walk-ins, a lot of the softwares don't really fit our needs. So this one at least allows us to do part of what we're looking at, but there's still some flaws that I'd like. Like, I'd love for it to be able to, when people are checking in, for them to be able to choose which doc they want to see versus us having to ask every time.
Yeah, I can see that. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, where do you want to send listeners to find out more about you? Do you want to send them to your website? Where should people go if they want to stalk you?
I honestly don't really have a huge social media. I would love to be able to rock the TikTok and rock the reels like you do. I love
You don't have time. You're just adjusting.
I have done one. And it was what people think adjusting a newborn is like versus actual. Yep. And it took me 5.5 hours to do that video. And it's just like, it's not my strength. And I want to try to play to my strength. So I guess my website, because that's the only thing that kind of has like everything in one fell swoop there. And they can kind of learn more about the box and how the practice works. And then, yeah, if anybody is interested about this model and maybe is looking for a job in 5 to 6 months,
right? No kidding.
I'll be hiring. And so, yeah, I'm getting to the point to where I don't like the waits to get longer than 30 minutes. And so when it gets to that point, it's usually time to add a new doc in. But
Rachel, thank you so much. This was seriously, I'm not joking. I'm just like, the wheels are turning in my head of like, all right, is it too hard to flip my clinic into this model? Because it's wonderful. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you. You are wonderful. She Slayers, go check out her website. I'll make sure Kirby includes that in the link below. If you are looking for a job, reach out. She was, even though she's giving her a hard time about social media, you responded to me very quickly about being a guest. So I don't know. Send her a DM if you're looking for it.
Well, I can respond. I just can't create.
So she's on social media. She just isn't producing. So, all right. Until next week, She Slayers. Bye.